Hello, Global Theater. My name is Gerry Fialka. Today is November 26, 2024. I want to thank Rob Grant. Is an outstanding podcast. I'm probably wrong about everything. Please subscribe. It's an honor and a pleasure today to be here with Steve Talkowski. How do you pronounce your last name?
Talkowski.
Talkowski. A good Polish man, just like me. So, Steve, where in the heck you calling in from? For those people who can't read, it says Marvista. Men are from Venus, and men are from Venice, and women are from Marvista.
We're probably like a few miles away from each other.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. The first question is, what's the best thing for a human being?
Wow. Freedom.
Oh my
and
God.
And I would say for artists, creative freedom.
Wow. I never get that word, and I love that word. Creative freedom, too. Okay. What's your favorite form of information, how it comes into you?
Well, as someone who keeps up with the times, it's got to be from online, but
Yeah.
it's what I seek out. So I try to, I try to seek out the truth when I can, and I don't take the first thing I read as truth. So I'll try to gather different sources.
Why do you think humans collect or gather information?
To learn from the past.
Yeah. Is this need or want more innate or more invented?
Probably innate.
Yeah. Do thoughts create emotion?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, you get in your head, and yeah, but emotions are probably from the gut. That's a hard one. It could be either way, I think.
Yeah.
Thoughts can lead to emotion, but then it's like the gut feeling is without thought.
Yeah. Fill in the blank, Steve. I don't know what I think until I
experience it.
Yep, I get that a lot. Do it, be it. McLuhan says, I don't know what I think until I say it. Joan Didion says, I don't know what I think until I write it. Can humans think without language?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Chomsky says language is not just words. It's a culture, a tradition, a unification of community, a whole history that creates what a community is. What do you do when language doesn't work, when it breaks down? What do you do?
Wow, man, you try to be patient and empathetic to getting the point across, and try to communicate the best you can. Maybe
Yeah.
through pictures or music.
Really good, man. I love those words. Patience, empathy, pictures and music, man. Your observations of humans in general, are we more thinking beings or more feeling beings?
I think we think too much. I would think maybe feeling beings more than anything.
Yeah.
Thinking
80%.
gets in the way.
Yeah, 80% of people go like this, Steve. I think we're more feeling beings. And you evoke Captain Beefheart. He says, I've had too much to think.
Beefheart, yeah. Love it.
But Bridget Bardot says, when I make love, I don't think. It's like, good luck. How do you turn your brain off? But people meditate, they go, okay, now think about not thinking. And there's a bumper sticker on a car on my street. It says, don't believe everything you think. And I'm like, well, you could say, don't believe everything you feel.
True, yeah.
But, we invented the words thinking and feeling, so we think we can separate them. They're probably, like you said at the beginning, they're so connected, you can't really separate them.
Absolutely.
2 questions from Turing in the 50s. 1, is thinking a function of the soul?
I mean, what is a soul? I guess if you believe in a soul, I'm an atheist, so I'll pass on that one.
The second Turing question is, can machines think?
Not yet. As someone who is dabbling in AI for ideation, I don't want it to think for me.
Yeah.
I want it to assist me.
Yeah.
So I don't want it to think. And I've had this argument a lot with the AI bros about, as someone who like wants to use AI, and oh yeah, well, you know, that's what all you guys do anyhow is you copy, and when you're in an art school, I'm like, well, that's BS, because the saying that good artists copies or great artist steals. They take that literally, but what it means is, when you're in art school and you are doing a copy of a masterwork, you're learning the process. You're not ripping it off. You're not plagiarizing it.
Yeah.
And I think the same way. I'm like, I can be inspired by other fellow artists' work and put up on the mood board when I'm designing something, but I'm not, you know, ethically and morally going to sit there and like, rip someone else's work off and call my own. So I would only use AI in a sense where I can feed it my original, and you can weight it now, and I can get some results that are still in my ideation, but I would never use it as a final output, just as an assist to guide how I
Yeah.
want to. Yeah.
It's good because you brought up, it evoked a lot. Harold Bloom, Anxiety of Influence, says, how you absorb your influence and then you abandon them. It's like, good luck, because a lot of these people are more retro than rooted, and Zappa really said it well. He said a genius is someone who steals and you can't tell who they stole it from.
I love that quote. Yeah.
But we know Frank stole from Spike Jones, Edgar Varese, and Johnny Guitar Watson, but he did transform it. So he's rooted, like you said. You're learning from the masters. You're rooted, but you're not necessarily retro. So, do you more pursue happiness or more pursue meaning?
Wow. Probably for me, meaning, because if I get the meaning across, then it makes me happy.
Yeah.
Versus like, what's being happy? I'm like, I don't know. I think meaning is more important, and I think the older you get, at least for me too, I really try to think about the meaning.
Yeah.
More than just the doing.
Yeah, well, I got it from Viktor Frankl's book, Man's Search for Meaning. He says meaning tends to last, happiness doesn't necessarily last. So, Steve, does the brain more detect consciousness or create it? Like, is consciousness there bubbling away and we're more so detecting it or more so creating it?
Oh, that's a good question. Yeah. Oh, that's a hard one to answer, especially when you dream. Because like I wish I had lucid dreams. I don't know if I do, but when I do have vivid dreams, and then you wake up and you're like, that could have really happened, or did it happen, or the whole thing about deja vu. So consciousness, that's one of those mysteries, huh? I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know the answer to that.
No, that's what I'm glad. I'm not trying to trick you. I like when people say I can't answer that or I don't know the answer. That's totally valid. And I do welcome anecdotes, stories, and tangents, because that's huge. The dream thing came up in New Yorker magazine a month or so ago when they had people discussing whether you dream inside the womb, or do you have to be outside the womb and have experiences to be able to dream? We can't really tell, but who knows? I mean, it's again like guessing, and it's that thing like lucid dreaming. I learned from Tim Leary says, if you learn how to lucid dream, you can direct your path for about 6 minutes. Whoa, we just cut off there. So hopefully Steve will be back. Steve is in computer animation, animation director, a designer toy. And here he is back.
Hey, I think my internet just like skipped a beat because I had my router just like turned off and on. Sorry about that.
No worries, man. We have to deal with this sometimes. It's so rare that it happens.
Yeah.
But I was saying how did you catch any of that about the whether the child can dream inside the womb?
Oh, I missed that. I missed that whole. Repeat that
Yeah,
part.
yeah. So basically, I was just curious. There was a New Yorker article a couple months ago where they were trying to suss out whether the baby does it need to be outside the womb and have experiences in order to dream, or can a baby dream inside the womb?
I have no idea, but I would imagine if it's uh if it's alive in the womb, then it probably can dream. I don't have any recollections of dreaming that young, so
Yeah.
I don't know. Yeah, I
In
would say it could be a possibility for sure. I
Yeah,
don't know.
and then the word lucid dreaming, Tim Leary says if you learn how to lucid dream, then you can direct your path for 6 minutes after you die. Your brain or consciousness might stay alive and you can sort of direct it. But
Mhm.
who knows? But I think lucid dreaming is similar to daydreaming.
Perhaps, yeah.
What's faster, speed of light or speed of thought?
Speed of thought.
Dude, there's no right or wrong answers, but that one you got right. Audre Lorde, the poet, said, "You can't dismantle the master's house using the master's tools." Her colleague Yvonne Rainer said, "You can if you expose the tools." What new tool do you suggest?
Expose the tool. Well, I think technology is changing, and if you want to surpass the master, you need to embrace the new and learn from the past and build upon that. So I think just being open to the new, you know.
Yeah, that's a good tool. Openness to the new. And what new toy do you suggest?
Oh, well, okay. I could suggest a lot of new toys. One that I really love is virtual reality,
Yeah,
and it's there's this new thing now, the augmented reality, where you're displaying graphics onto the real world. But I still prefer the virtual world because you can create anything
yeah,
and be immersed in it. And you're still looking through a 2D headset. I think the next thing would be, is there a way for us to jack in and experience it in a different way versus just looking at it on a stereoscopic screen. But when you have true 6 DOF, which is 6 degrees of freedom, you are in a space moving around and you feel like you can be anywhere. It's almost like the holodeck, but it's immersive and you can interact with it. I just always think VR is a cool next step, and
yeah.
I can't wait to see what the next thing after VR AR is.
Really cool. When you said 6 DOF, is that DOF?
Yeah, 6 degrees of freedom.
Oh, degrees of freedom.
Yeah.
Thank you. I love learning. And then that's your word again, freedom. But did you go to the Apple store and try one of those things? What's it called? Something Pro?
You mean
Or
one
you
of
got
you mean one of these things right here?
what is it called again?
The Vision Pro?
Vision Pro. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I got sucked in early. Yeah, I'm an early adopter for sure.
Wow. What do you worry about when you go to bed at night?
If I'll wake up. No. No. What I worry about when I go to bed, it's hard. It's like, now that I'm a father, you worry about your daughter, and I worry about my family. I just worry, you kind of want to make sure everything's okay. And you worry about where the next job's coming from and paying the bills and, just everything, health. Sometimes, it's hard to I find that I get too into my head when I go to bed. So
Yeah.
sometimes I can't get to sleep, or I'll wake up in the middle of the night and I'll be like, and I'll be thinking about all this stuff and I can't get to sleep.
Yeah.
And then I think the way I try to get to sleep is I try to see if I can maybe problem solve things that I had in the daytime. I start
Yeah.
thinking about how I could work on those problems as I fall asleep and see if I wake up in the morning with a solution or not.
That's good. I like that. Well, it's similar. McLuhan learned from the poet Ezra Pound that artists are the antenna of the race. They're broadcasting and detecting the hidden psychic effects of our inventions. So we might learn how to cope with what we don't like about our inventions. So, Steve, I asked you the question McLuhan probed his whole career. Why do we ignore the hidden psychic effects of our inventions, even though the artists are broadcasting them to us?
Because maybe it's too hard to face the
Yeah,
inner. It's
yeah,
hard to face the inner truth. I mean, that's hard to like. I think any true artist really is trying to deal with those inner feelings. I've struggled with that all my career trying to do that. I mean, like, commercial versus the personal.
yeah,
It's hard.
yeah.
You can't make money with the personal. You got to always kind of fall back on the commercial and what you're good at to survive. It's hard to be a true artist, to really get it out there. But if you're working in the commercial world, you try to bring your own influences into it. I think you try to get it in any way you can. And then if I know I have a lot of peers that do the same, like, I'm obsessed. So when I'm not working, I'm working on my own stuff. And it's like,
Wow.
that's how it is. You just have to continue doing it. The hustle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dude, it's so good. We're going to get into that, but I have to follow that one up with, do artists have moral obligation?
I think they do.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're just gonna, I don't know. Yeah, I think you do. Yeah, for sure.
Because what you touched on was like what I learned from Al Flipside. Don't sell out, sneak in. I think that's what Frank sort of did, but he knew. His great line I always repeat was, I'm a devout capitalist.
Man, I just so love that I met you through Frank's show, because like I learn more about you as someone who's been with Frank. I could do a podcast on you.
Yeah, well, the other one is Paul Schrader, who went up and visited Frank once. He wrote Taxi Driver. He's got a brand new film out too, and he said the role of the artist is to attempt to sell out but fail. Now, it sounds cool, and it almost implies, oh, my art is so pure that I tried to sell out and fail. So most people like it. You try to sell out and then you fail. That means your art is so pure. So there's a lot of ways to interpret that.
Yeah.
And you touched on this one, Steve. Are you more afraid of new ideas or more afraid of old ideas?
Oh, it's got to be new. It's got to be more afraid of new ideas, right? Because if you're not afraid to move forward, then what's the point?
Yeah.
I like old ideas would just keep you in the past, right? So I mean, I would be more afraid of. Yeah, I think I would be more afraid of wanting to learn what's new. I mean, if you stop learning, what's the point?
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know if I answered that right, but
Well,
I get the gist of it. I get the gist of it. Yeah.
Yeah. Can you conjure up your earliest memory ever, or one of them?
Ooh, wow. Yeah, I think I always remember this time when I was being babysat. It was like a Saturday afternoon and the sun was going down. And I remember on TV that there was a show, The Incredible, was it the Colossal Man, the black and white film where the guy grows. And I always remember this image of the army with this big hypodermic needle trying to inject him. And then he takes it and he throws at this. I was probably like 5 or something. I remember being babysat. I was a young kid, right? And I remember seeing that movie was on. I just always remember that image of the giant throwing the hypodermic needle back to the soldier and impaling the soldier. That was something I remember vividly.
Yeah. Is memory more a curse or more a blessing?
Both.
Yeah.
It's both. It's how you deal with them.
Yep.
Yeah.
So tell me someone within your immediate family who had an impact on you, kind of like a role model, and what specifically was the impact?
Wow. In my family. That's a hard one. Probably my dad, because I always remember wanting to, do what he did. Kind of like he was into drafting and computers early on, and and model building, and I kind of saw that I had that same inclination. But he always kind of steered me in the other direction. He said, "You're more of a creative. I'm more of the technical," and he saw that in me. Um,
Wow, that's cool. Now, same question outside your immediate family, someone who had an impact on you, and what was that impact?
ooh, God, there's different phases of life that's so important.
Well, just one major one that stands out, say, kinda.
Um, maybe early on, was I feel that my I was always a visual artist first and foremost. I remember
Yes.
drawing at an early age. However, when I was in third grade, I remember I wanted to play an instrument, and I went to the band room, and the band teacher looked me up and down because I was a tall kid, and he brought out this sheet of paper with all these instruments on it, and on the left side was a trombone. He goes, "What do you think about this?" And I think I went in thinking I was going to either want to play the violin or the piano for some reason. He pointed out this trombone. He took one out and he showed me how to hold it and get my embouchure to work and try it out. And I ended up playing it for 14 years. So that might have had a big impact on what I thought I was going to maybe go down the road of being a performer, a musician for a while. But then the fine arts and the visual stuff took over. But I
Yeah.
did both up through college. Yeah.
Did your parents raise you a particular religion?
Yeah, we were raised Catholic, but we pretty much stopped that when I was in high school.
Do you pray?
No.
If God exists, what would you like God to say to you after you die?
Uh, See, I wasn't a figment of your imagination. Or maybe he'd be like, okay, am I your proof? You know, who knew?
You know, one guy said, "Not." That's what they want God to say to him, "Not." Do evil people exist, or does the evil use people as a vehicle?
Well, then again, what is evil? You know, is that like a religious construct, or is it like just people being bad
Yeah,
without any value? So it's hard to answer that question depending on your beliefs.
yeah,
There's bad
well,
people, but people are bad because they probably were raised that way and they
yeah,
weren't loved rightly and shown the right way. So
yeah,
I don't think I think evil is constructed. It's not a
yeah.
belief. Yeah.
What's sort of the real hidden question here, Steve, is how do you advise someone to deal with an enemy? And I'll set it up. Alan Watts says, if you acknowledge your enemy, you empower them. Coppola stole from the mob and the samurai. Keep your friends close and your enemies closer. JFK said, forgive your enemy, but don't forget their name. And Fellini says, I need an enemy. So it's a lot of thoughts. The basic question is, how do you advise someone to deal with an enemy? But first, how would you respond to Alan Watts? If you acknowledge your enemy, you empower them.
By acknowledging, meaning that you take on the role that okay, they're the bad guy, I'm the good guy. That kind of acknowledgement.
Well, that's again, you put the questions into the context you want, but it's really like, Steve, it's me and you versus the wording on the question. So I'm always open to like psychoanalyze the wording. Like,
Yeah.
what did Alan Watts mean by acknowledging? So it's like if your daughter came home from school and says, someone's bullying me, what would you advise her to do?
Right. Yeah. That's a good situation that's actually happened. Man, it's like, I don't even know the background of this person. So they might have been bullied themselves. So you kind of
Yeah,
have to almost be a little bit sympathetic to that and be like, okay, maybe there's a reason why they're lashing out. Try to do the right thing. And maybe it's hard to like, how do you, if someone's like out to kill you, you can't like have a conversation with that, but you have to kind of, you have to protect yourself. But I don't know. It's like, you would think that this gets in this whole other conversation about being good and morals and stuff, but it's just like, why can't people just fucking live and be happy that they're alive?
yeah,
Why? And I hate to say it, but it's all because of religion. It's like the religion
yeah.
makes people crazy. So I'd be like, just, you know, just be happy that you're alive and
Yeah.
and give back. instead of
Yeah,
taking.
well, I think what you're talking about the word I thought you said earlier that really is have empathy. But if they're trying to kill you, you got to adjust. And it's actually again another hidden layer, as Nassim Taleb said, games were created to give non-heroes the illusion of winning. In
Yeah.
real life, we don't know who wins or loses, but we can tell who a hero is. My friend says, well, villains don't think they're bad, they want control. Heroes want freedom. And Gregory Bateson said, if the criminal gets caught, does he go, whoa, my criminal skills weren't up to snuff? Or does he go, wow, I did something morally and socially wrong? So again, it's a lot of prompts. You can go wherever you want, but the basic question is, does punishment work?
I don't think punishment works.
Yeah.
No. No. Sadly, it doesn't.
Yeah. James Joyce was the first projectionist in Dublin 100 years ago. He basically checked out. He said, this is stupid. Why should I go inside a building and see a movie of a tree when I can go outside and see a real tree? Years later, Faulkner said, sometimes the best fiction is more true than journalism. Why do we have to recreate things in order to get them? Why do we have to go to a theatrical play of people acting out life? Why don't we just live life?
That's the role of the artist. We are filtering it to show someone a different perspective, I think.
Yeah.
It's great. Yeah. Especially in this day and age, like, why are you sitting on your phone looking at stupid TikTok videos when you could be out, experiencing it? But I think true art forms, all of them, music, art, literature. I mean, it's through the viewpoint of that person trying to show you something in a unique viewpoint, and I think it's certainly valid. So you can have both. Yeah, like I like, I'll go on a hike, but guess what? What if I wanted to go on a hike on a science fiction psychedelic 3D world that it's like the same idea, but it's like, okay, I can show you something new, and it's like something I'm gonna invent and show to you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're going to get into art, but soon. But I wanted to ask you your reactions to these quotes. This is Mike Kelly. Art is making your problems other people's problems. Any thoughts on that?
I don't know if it's about making your problems other people's problems. It's just making your interpretation and your like, why should it be someone else's problem? You're just putting it out there, and the viewer can decide if it's a problem or not. The viewer is just there to like understand, hopefully understand it or want to understand it. Like, people are like, I don't get it, and they don't care. But if you are open to like, oh, what is this person doing? Again, this gets the whole thing about like all the different movements of art through the ages. When I was younger, I was the same naive way where I was like, when I was first going to art school and I was like learning about modern art, I was like, what? Oh, that's crap. Somebody, I could have done that. No, you don't understand. And when you start learning about art history, you start learning, you start doing it yourself. You're like, oh wow, okay, I get it, and you understand why certain movements in art happened as a reaction to the previous versions, and it just keeps on going from there.
Well, that's perfect lead-in, Steve. Thank you. Tell me the tipping point when you decided to be an artist. Like, you sort of walked us through when you walked in and the music guy said, hey, try the trombone. And, that was a tipping point for you to engage with an instrument for 14 years. But where's that tipping point? I mean, are you growing up drawing? Are your parents taking you to art museums? Or, where is that tipping point where you go, oh, this is my calling?
I remember vividly drawing from probably being 8 years old, maybe 7.
Yeah.
But I mean, like thinking that this is what I wanted to do. Like, I wanted to do comic books for the longest time, right?
Yeah.
And I got into comics in the like the mid 70s.
Yeah.
And I was in high school and I was playing music and thinking like, I was gonna maybe be a music major, but then I was like, I missed out on a scholarship to the big university, so I had to figure out another route. And so what did I do? I had met this artist who worked for DC Comics at the time, and I grew up in Tempe, Arizona. He lived in Mesa, and he drew Batman. And I remember meeting him at a comic book store years before that. And so what did I do? I found him in the phone book, basically called him up and invited him. I was like, hey, can I come over and show you my portfolio and get your advice on if I have what it takes to be a comic book artist, right? And so I go to his place, and I was so naive. Like, I did not know that you drew comics like 2.5 size larger on Bristol, like they were penciled in and inked. Like, I didn't know the process because I didn't have like an older brother. I didn't go to art. I didn't have any of this. I just was like, I was consuming, and like wanting to do that and do my, and like trying to mimic the people I like. I read. I would try to draw on their style. But he saw my work and he goes, "Hey, you got some talent, but you really need to take some art class. You need to like take some figure drawing, composition, the whole 9 yards." And I was like, "Yeah, I can't afford to go to the Arizona State." But he goes, "Mesa Community has a great art program. You should go here." It's, you know, so I did, and I went there for 3 semesters, and I met some really influential teachers, and I still stuck with music, but like that was when I was really, okay, I'm going to start now down the path of you know, learning, taking art history classes, taking some art anatomy class was the biggest revelation for me, because the teacher who taught at Art Han, he was you know, old school drawing on an overhead projector, and you would learn everything. The first semester was learning the skeletal structure, and then the second semester was how the muscles, point of origin, point of insertion, how muscular the bones have influence on the outside. You learn all the stuff. Then you would have like an hour lab, and then you go in and draw for 3 hours from the model sitting next to a skeleton pose that way. So that 1 year I'll never forget that 1 year I was taking like art anatomy, figure drawing, and then drawing on comp. I was like drawing for like 9 hours straight, and then I would go back on Wednesday nights to do another 3 hours of like life drawing session. You can just go after hours. So I was like just pounding and drawing, just live, breathe, eating it. And that's when I really was like, yeah, okay, I'm finally starting to kind of get it, you know. But the big thing for me also was I was always into computer graphics from an early age. I remember seeing the movie Tron in 1982, and I was like, man, it's like animation and the visuals, and of course Star Wars when I was, you know, I was 12 when Star Wars came out. And that was also blew me away. So I was always influenced by what was the times that I was raised in, right? That I lived through. But this whole like, oh, I want to be an artist, a real artist, you know, but I'm also being lured by the technology. So I was doing computer graphics when I was in college, working at the PBS station, side by side doing my fine art. And it was a struggle all through college.
Wow, you really covered a lot, because we're going to go into all that now. Because you know, I got into computer animation through the Whitney brothers as experimental filmmakers.
Yep.
But then, you know, we're seeing 2001, and we're seeing, you know, all this variations on this. And so this is a screenwriting teacher told me, great art is when you can clearly see the intention of the maker. Kubrick says the opposite. Great art is when you can clearly not see the intention of the maker. So you can go into 2 folds on this, Steve, and that is, what role does intention play in your creative process when you're making personal fine art and when you're making commercial assigned art? What role does intention play?
Yeah, that's a good question. By the way, I love Kubrick.
Yeah.
I would say that I think I have failed more in the fine art intention because I got too suckered into the commercial work of, you know, I got to make money, I got to survive. I was I didn't really pursue my personal art as much as I had wanted to. I think I'm now finally getting a chance to kind of go back into it. There was a turning point. I think it was in like 2005, 6. I was an animation director for this small company in New York, and I was getting so fed up doing commercial work, the same crap over and over again, mascara bits and, you know, makeup, and it was just like boring the shit out of me. And I got to the point where I was just like, I didn't care anymore. I just quit that job. I decided to go freelance, and I started my own little thing, and I decided to do a designer toy. That's when I think the first time I really felt as an artist that I was going to do something that was personal. I'm just going to go all out and do it. And I was very transparent about it. Actually, this is the toy right here. It's called Sketchbot.
Oh, how cool is that?
So thank you. So when I first did it, I did it all wrong. It's funny. I have the original up here. Hold on. This is I did the first one like this hard plaster cast thing as one piece, and I learned a lot of. I did it all transparent too. Like back when Flickr was a thing, I was posting my whole progress on Flickr, but
Yeah.
that evolved into an actual production toy that I was able to prototype, create the 3D models myself, get it 3D printed, and then get it produced. So I would say this toy was was really my first time doing something truly personal, truly my own, not from anybody else's mandate or whim. It was something that I decided to do. I self-financed it because I was able to, and I did it. And it's my brand now, and I am actively I'm actively developing it and revising it and getting ready to pitch some new IP with this particular brand. But that's the first time I think as an artist that I think I really feel that I did something that was personal. So
Cool.
that was definitely with intent.
Yeah, that's cool, Steve. And Duchamp said there's no art without an audience. How much are you thinking of your potential buyer when you were doing the makeup commercials and then when you're doing your sketchbot?
Well, when I'm doing the commercial work, it's through a client, and we've done this work many years and all different types of commercials. So I know what's expected, and sometimes we'll get boards, or I'll be asked to do a board and come up with an idea. So in that sense, I feel like a little bit of creativity where I get to come up with the idea and how we're going to present the information. And with the toy, I did a lot of research as well. Like I would go to Comic-Con, I would talk to people, I would be a sponge. I'd be like, how did you get your toy produced? And like I would see how marketing works. This is like kind of like the internet, that we know really was like 94 and on. And I remember like in the early 2000s, that's when you finally started kind of taking off, and the whole idea about websites and getting stuff out there. So this is before like Instagram, before all the stuff. I was doing it through Flickr and just trying to I started a blog, and some of the toy people, I would meet them. The toy blog journalists, I would meet them at Comic-Con, and then I would have my thing, and they would take a picture of me, and hey, here's a new artist doing a new retro robot. And I just kind of like learned how to surf that wave and get the word out, and just like you have to be your own best promoter too. So I just, whenever something new like would come out, like when Instagram did come out, or Twitter, or whatever, you kind of try to learn how to utilize it and try to get the branding out. And so everyone knows me as the eyeball icon. So that's my brand. I kind of try to continue on with that and push it forward.
Really cool. And so McLuhan says everything we invent extends some humanness, like knife and fork extends our teeth, the shutter in a camera or projector extends our eyelid, and maybe even non-tangibles, say philosophy, extends consciousness. One of your main tools growing up was like the pencil or the pen. What does the writing utensil extend for you? What humanness?
Wow, that's a great question too. Like all you need is a pencil. You can do so much with a pencil. You can write music with it. You can write literature. You can write poetry, and you could draw with it. Or you can invent with it. I think that's really the powerful. Like, it's like that. How do you get what's up here out?
Yeah.
And the pencil has been a great thing, and it all comes back to that, right? It all comes back to, like, for me at least, drawing is the basis of everything. So every new idea that I come up with, I do a quick sketch. That's what I think. I could do a VR sketch or sculpt, or I could do something a different way, but it always starts for me, just lay down some strokes, get an idea out really quickly. It could be just a thumbnail, and then you got that like blueprint to go from.
You're like a hands-on guy. It's hands, but it's also like what you just said was that what a humanness that extends is what's up here. It reminds me of T.S. Eliot saying poetry is outing your inner dialogue. What language is your inner dialogue in?
Oh, that's a good question too. God, do you hear people talk about they have like an inner soundtrack?
Yeah,
dude, I am all about, because that's how important music still is to me, even though I didn't pursue being a musician. And here's the thing, people who write music and who can compose, it just blows my mind, because I understand music theory to a certain extent, and because I perform, but I was performing other people's work. I never like had that impetus as a performer to like, I was in jazz band. I tried to improvise a little bit, but I just, you either have it or you don't, and I didn't have that that way of that I was wired, but I was totally wired the visual way. So I always wonder, man, people who have that, who are wired musically, man, they're tapping into some other stuff, because music really, like, you look at the popular music is, and how it's sad, because visual artists, we pale in comparison to like architecture and the audio, the musical world. But I still think there's like, I get excited seeing visual composition too. So it's like, it's just different wiring. And man, what a dangerous threat when you have both. You like the musical wiring, and then the visual wiring, and then you're like, maybe I get a little bit of that, maybe, like, because I do direct animation, I do direct projects, so I can see that overall thing. But I'm like, always like, yeah, like I would like want to team up with someone who knows the music or knows the idea of what I'm trying to get across, because then they could give something to it with their wiring. You know what I'm saying? So it's just a one of those mystical, like, wow, how does that even happen type of things that I always wonder about.
I like that. It evoked a lot, like Oscar Fissinger and Len Lai. They were making films that were very musical. And then Frank nailed it in Hot Rats when he said, "This is a movie for your ears."
Yes. And I've often, over the years, as an animation person, I've often thought about ways. I was always trying to think of, like, how can you visualize music? And it's like a 1-to-1 thing, or like, a color could be a note. But what happens when you mix colors? You get different hues. Can you mix? Like, I always thought about music and art that way.
Yeah. Well, that's funny, because let's go into music. What's the function of music?
Man, just pure audio joy, right? Oral
Yeah.
joy. I mean, come on. It's like, when they say music to your ears, that's like what it really is. It's just like,
Yeah.
how can you can't just really describe it. It's like, it's either there or it's not. And there's like all different types that appeal to all different types of people. So I think music is amazing. I love music.
Yeah. And you just brought up that word technique. My friend says the 3 T's of music are technique, theory, and taste. Technique, you learned how to play the trombone. Theory, you knew the structure. How does one acquire taste?
I think you learn taste. I mean, I think everyone, it's just like how, what you're exposed to as you grow up. I can't speak to kids who are like these phenoms, or these, like the Mozarts or whatever, like, how do you explain that? But I think, when taste is just, taste is what you were exposed to and what you saw and what you decided to seek out, right? But then also there's lots of happy accidents too. Like, there's like still things to this day, like who's this band from the 60s that I never heard about, and why is their music so amazing? I have to then do a deep dive. And I'm like one of these kind of guys where I will do deep dives and I'll just listen to the whole albums nonstop over and over again. I'm just like, I kind of want to know more, and I try to like learn about the history. So I get into these compartments where I just like go down these rabbit holes. I'm still doing it with Frank to this day. I do it with Devo, do it with Elvis Costello. I mean, I do it with all the, I'm influenced from all the different, the Beatles. I love the Beatles, like all the different stuff, classical music, jazz. I'm a really big jazz person too. So it's like, there's so much, but I also find that I get in certain moods. So I don't listen to all at once. I don't listen to, like, there'll be months that go by that I probably won't even listen to classical music, because I'll listen to some other stuff. And then other times I get in this jazz thing where I'll just listen to jazz nonstop.
Yeah.
It's weird. It's like, I can't describe it. I'm just like, it kind of like, maybe it's part of my ADHD. Maybe I have some kind of weird obsessive with music in that sense.
No, it's really interesting how we do that. And McLuhan had a quote about music with the word taste in it. I'm curious your reaction. Song is slow down speech. The reason cultures have different musical taste is ultimately connected to language difference.
Yeah, I like that song is slow down speech. That's so cool. Yeah, language.
Yeah, language difference. Because, Frank talked about that in one interview, how you hear the guy at the gas station talk, and it's almost musical how he talks. People
I think,
from
all the different dialects and all the different melodies of how people express through word. Yeah, for sure.
What's more fundamental, language or music?
Ooh, fundamental. Uh, well, would fundamental mean having a structure, like having that structural building blocks? Probably music, right? I think. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know the answer. I just ask. I'm because I'm always curious because people answered all different ways. But
Well, it seems like language though is like to survive, you need to like pretty quickly you learn to speak at an early age.
yeah,
But with music, I don't know. I think maybe it's a different learning process.
yeah. Tell me the name of an instrumental that makes you laugh.
Oh, that makes me laugh. Well, I'm just because I'm just listening to "Rolling It for the Money." There's a lot of what Frank's doing with the audio mix and how he's like speeding it up, but it's still in tune.
Yeah,
And some of the phrasings, I freaking love that album. And I'm like, yeah, I just
that's a good example because he used the studio as an instrument in that album. He's really
yeah,
a master of the studio, and when he changes the speeds on some of the instruments, but retains normal speed. I mean, my favorite is Speed Freak Boogie. You know,
yeah. I like a flower. Hey boy, where you going with that flower in your hand? Ding, ding, ding,
yeah,
ding. I'm going up to Frisco to join the psychedelic band. I love his play of words, but then he makes it funny with jacking up the tempo, but it's still in
yeah,
tune. And
yeah.
like how did the I'm sure that the people who did the Minions must have looked at that album and be like, that's our voice track. That's up because it's like the same idea. They were like these
Is
little
it
trans.
really? I haven't seen it. I got to see that. Yeah,
But I love that album. I just that's the one of the ones I've been doing an obsessive dive on that one lately. Because also there's this beautiful little classical transition that Frank uses in uh with other people. It cuts into this beautiful classical thing and it cuts off. It's only like 40 seconds. And I've been on this like frantic search to find an expanded version of it. Like I've been like lumpy gravy and lumpy money and trying to find it.
yeah,
It's a little it's but he like his his compositional skills, he was amazing.
yeah.
And I just feel like, I feel like he probably wanted to do that more than being a rock star or being a
Oh
rock
yeah.
at all. I think he was really wanted to do composing
Well,
was
yeah.
his
Let's go into your history of what you started with Frank because you touched on this earlier at the tension because Frank says I write this music for myself and if other people like it great, but I think that's over romanticizing the creative process because he knew from the beginning if he hit these notes and saying these words kids would buy his records, then he could make more music. But your history, I mean, when did you first get into Frank? Where was the turning point or tipping point on that? Like, this is someone I want to pursue. What album did you start with?
So okay, of course, growing up in the '80s, listening to MTV, I was aware of Valley Girl, but
Yeah,
I didn't really know anything about Frank. Right, all I knew was Valley Girl. But then it was in college, and I remember a good friend of mine, Sergio, a fellow painter friend of mine, he turned me on. We were listening to "You Are What You Is." And
wow.
that was my first album that I listened to Frank, and I was like, "Whoa, this is amazing!" But here's the thing: it didn't. I didn't. At that point, I didn't like grasp it and go crazy with it. I was like, okay, cool, this is cool, and we listened to it. But I was also listening to other stuff, and then it was in the whole British invasion stuff with like Elvis Costello and Robin Hitchcock and like all that kind of stuff. I was like all over the map with that. I was like more alternative music than the mainstream rock. And
Yeah,
then as I got older, and I started getting a little more disciplined with listening and going back to stuff. Like the same thing with Devo. Like I was aware of Devo, but man, I wasn't really aware of their brilliance until maybe like 10 years ago, where I really started like, oh my God, they're like so much more than what people think they are with, they just think whip it, right? There's so
yeah,
much more than that. I've had the great opportunity to see them a couple times now. But with Frank, I think it's just in probably the last 10 years where I really started like, oh my God, I started meeting other people who were like, oh yeah, I was starting to ask questions about Frank and what Frank album should I listen to? Oh, I heard this, I heard that.
yeah.
So I would say that man, I got to go. I was really privileged to be chosen to go to the 40th anniversary of the Apostrophe Dolby screening a couple of months ago,
Yeah.
and I got to meet Amit, And it was great. We talked because I actually worked on a Frank Zappa hologram tour that sadly only saw like maybe a handful of performances before COVID shut it down.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, Apostrophe is amazing. Zoodlers is amazing. Anything with like the whole George Duke era with Ruth and yeah, that whole
With
era.
Napoleon. No, I just had Napoleon on my podcast, and I just had Bruce Fowler on. So
I gotta watch those shows. Yeah,
yeah, I mean that was an amazing band with Roxy. But it's funny you start with "You Are What You Is" because that actually is like Frank doing almost pop music, and it is such a strong album in so many ways. In fact, Thundercat is highly influenced by that. A contemporary pop star now says you are, he says Teenage Win is like it's a main influence on him. So this is Copeland, saying that the four main ingredients of music are rhythm, harmony, melody, and tone color. What's your thoughts on that? And you can relate it to Frank or just your own preference and how many genres of music you've delved into.
Well, was it rhythm, harmony? What was the third one?
It's rhythm, harmony, melody, and tone color. Yeah.
Tone. I love tone color. I think there's something. The thing that appeals to me to a lot in music is dissonance, and Frank does it all the time. I just love that where like it's like these like off chords, like that's where like I wish I could go back and maybe like when I was younger and learn more about just that really in-depth music theory. But I try to watch a lot of stuff nowadays. I like watching different musicians break down music, like brick pianos and stuff like that. But yeah, the tone color, I love that.
That's amazing. You brought up that one because that's usually I follow up and says, "Tell me what tone color is." Not in musical terms, because they usually go, well, that's timbre. And I goes, well, that's mute. The normal person doesn't know what timbre is, and they don't usually know what tone color is. I mean, how do you describe tone color in just normal people's terms?
When you listen to passionate music, you get the goosebumps.
Yeah.
That to me is tone color, man. It's
like, goosebumps music.
And there are passages that to this day that I can listen to, and like when I hit that point in the song, I get that same. There's a term for it. I can't remember what it's called. There's that same term where like it's the same, like that whatever that chord is or that note or that building up progression. I always will get that same at the exact same moment listening to it.
Yeah.
I love that. It's like, come on, man. Like I don't get that with visual art. I get that only with musical art.
That's amazing. I love that.
I mean,
goosebump music. I love that. Well, this is Leonard Cohen. He said the only way you can sell a concert is if you put yourself at risk. And if you don't do that, people know. What role does risk play in your creative process?
Yeah, I think people can sniff it out. I think, if you're not sincere and it just looks like you just were like phoning it in. I mean, also, like, is that something that you as personally as an artist want to put out there? I feel like, I think nowadays people are this whole influencer term, right? People think that, they got to put stuff out nonstop, but I think it dilutes it. I think, are you really thinking about what you're putting out there? Yeah, when you're working on something new and you want to show it, sometimes I've fallen into that same trap where it's like, I'll post something on my art station on Instagram and I look back and going, yeah, that probably wasn't really done. I probably shouldn't have put that out there yet. But yeah, I think you're cheating yourself when you try to do that. I think you got to be true to yourself first.
Yeah, appreciate your time here, Steve. You're really articulate and concise. This is Michael Apted, the movie director. 40 years ago, I asked him, why do rock video editors feel so obliged to edit fast? Most people don't know Abel Gance invented rapid montage in 1922, but it really flourished in the 80s, like you said, with MTV. And Marty Scorsese said, hey, I cut my films faster because of MTV. And Michael said, well, because we've learned to take in information faster. So I'm just curious, and I asked this question with a bias. Can we literally learn to take in information faster, or are we just brainwashed to believe we can?
Man, that's cool. That's like a that could be a good evolutionary observation too. Like, I think we are trained. I think we're trained, and I think we're kind of like geared toward it, whether we like it or not. That's why I think a lot of people still appreciate some of the slower stuff. But I think faster cutting definitely has its place. I think it evokes a certain mood, and it could elevate a particular passage, especially in a film. So I don't know. I think I hate to say it, but it's like, because my daughter is like TikTok nonstop. It's like that, right?
Yeah.
I'm like, come on, it's like too much. It's like too fast, too little substance just thrown at you nonstop. I feel bad that she's kind of like suckered into that right now, and I hope that maybe she at some point she'll like, when she's not being a teenager, maybe she'll like step back and go, "Oh my god, I missed so much because I was just getting these like, remember Max Headroom, the blip verts,
Yeah.
too many blip verts. You know, it's like how can you absorb it all? Yeah, it's a tough one to go through because like, yeah, we were getting older. I'm like, yeah, back in my day we had this, and like I'm sure like back in my day, it's like, you know, everyone looks back to like what happened and how it progressed. But I see it. I see. I can follow it. And I see why certain things are cut fast. But I don't think everything needs to be cut fast. I think, you know, you want to have that variety, and it's all about intent and how you guide, and you know.
Yeah, if you study Frank's history, he started flicker framing in 200 motels. In that a dub room special, I was sitting there in the editing room with him once, watching him for an hour to flicker frame between like Chad's drums and this other shot, and it was just
Yeah.
like, it was all analog. It wasn't even digital yet. And then, you know, he really got that from, of all people, the director. He co-directed Tony Palmer with 200 Motels, because Tony did that flicker frame editing in the Cream documentary he did before 200 Motels. So I think Frank maybe got some of that impulse to do it from Tony. Who knows? But the real hidden question, Steve, is it literally possible for humans to multitask?
I can't multitask. I try to think I can, but I can't. I really can't. I think you maybe do a disservice to the main thing you're trying to do if you try to multitask.
Yeah.
And I guess there's different types of multitasking. Like, yeah, okay, like I need to I can listen to music I can listen to a talk show on the radio while I'm driving the car, but I got to make sure my full attention is driving. So then I'm not giving full attention to the music or the words. But I think you can in a certain sense.
Yeah.
But like, okay, like there's a really Richard Williams is an amazing animator who passed away a couple years ago. He had this book out, and one of his great drawings was he had this picture of himself. He was like sneaking up behind one of the great Disney artists to ask him about his opinion on, do you listen to music when you animate? And the guy gets up and he's like, you know, how could you even ask me? I can't even fucking concentrate on this one drawing alone. Like that's the essence of it, really. It's like, and that's the same thing. Like if I'm like modeling a character, I've done it so much now that it's kind of second nature. I know where to put the edge loops. I know how to model this thing out. I can listen to music in the background.
Yeah.
But if I'm animating, and especially if I'm timing stuff out, I can't do anything else. I can't listen to anything. I have to like focus and scrub the animation. So
yeah.
And I'll tell you, I don't have a record player anymore, but I used to have that records when I was a kid, and again listen to the headphones. I love to just like set off time to just listen.
Yeah.
I make it a party, and especially like when the girls go to bed, and I'm gonna hang out for another hour on the couch in the dark, and I'll put my headphones on. I'll just listen to some album, just to focus on listening to it. So I definitely like to do that too. So I think I don't think multitasking is a real thing.
I love making time to listen to music. So important, because it really just became so commodified and it's everywhere. And we just chalk that off as that is the, you know, Walter Patter's quote is the most amazing. All art aspires to the condition of music. You know, animation, architecture, painting, poetry, all wishes it could be as cool as music.
Yep.
And so what do you think the motive of the cave artist was? What's your hunch or guess?
I think it was about communication, right?
Yeah.
It seems like it was about trying to communicate and maybe storytell.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, then on that regard, a great experimental filmmaker, Hollis Frampton, said narrative is born among the animal necessities of the spirit because we're waiting to die. Steve, can you forget to die?
I think if you're living life to its fullest, you can forget to die. Yeah.
Yeah. What's more important, conviction or compromise?
Oh, more important is conviction,
Yeah.
because you can always compromise later. Yeah.
In your accomplishments, how do you rate these three elements, luck, skill, and ambition? What played the biggest role, second and third?
Yeah, that's always a good question. You got to have the ambition first and foremost, I think, right? To do anything. You always acquire the skill, but man, you got to be lucky too. So I
Yeah.
would think it's like ambition, luck, and skill.
Yeah.
Because if you're lucky, but you don't have the ambition or the skill yet, then it's kind of goes to waste. So you kind of I think you make your own luck based on your ambition, and then you acquire the skill, or you are in the process of acquiring the skill because you want to do it something really bad. Then it's like, I just got to have that luck to get my foot in the door. It really is
Yeah.
about luck in this industry. Yeah.
Yeah. The golfer Gary Player says the more you practice, the luckier you get.
Yep, that's true.
But I used to ask the question, is ambition based more on fear or joy? But because it was just they could answer either way, I changed it when I read William Friedkin said in Hollywood, skill and luck have nothing to do with it. It's all ambition. But that's just,
Yeah.
his opinion. But this is two of my film heroes have this mantra. Ignore yourself. Jonas Mekas says there is no self-expression. And Cecil Taylor, the great jazz pianist, says, I'm just a vehicle and this stuff just comes through me. Is art making more self-expression or more you're a vehicle for whatever technologies, cultures, and environments are dominant?
I don't buy the vehicle thing because that's too like ambiguous. I mean, like a vehicle, like you just exist to funnel something else. I feel that you gotta create. I mean, there's something in you that differentiates you from like the animals. Do animals create? I don't think
Yeah.
so. And also the whole thing with AI doesn't wake up one day going, "Oh, I want to make something."
Yeah.
It's like we are kind of unique where we have this this desire to make, to create.
Yeah.
I don't think I'm here to funnel something. I think there's a struggle involved, and I think yeah, I'm not a conduit for anything. I got to have intent. I'm thinking about constantly about how I want to get stuff out and learn and grow, and I just I don't see the other one it's for me personally.
Can art making be egoless?
Not true art making. No. I think you have to you really have to deal with the ego if you're really going to look inward and make something unique or worth making, right? Otherwise, why are you just like repeating what's already been done? I hate people who cheat and repeat stuff like that and plagiarize. It's like, why? They just cheated themselves.
Is perception reality?
No, it's perception.
Very good. Lewis Carroll says, I believe as many as 6 impossible things before breakfast. Have you believed in any impossible things lately?
Yeah, I believe it's impossible to get a fucking job in this current state. For sure. Yeah, I don't know. It's isn't impossible to nothing should be impossible, right? It's like you do.
It's great.
Yeah,
Listen,
yeah.
It's like Sun Ra was in New Yorker magazine of all places being quoted. The impossible attracts me because everything possible has been done and the world didn't change.
Yeah.
So tell me one major element, because Steve, you've done a lot, going from, playing music, computer animation, animation director, toys design, real-time computer animation, VR. Tell me all, and through that, your through line, being creative. Tell me one major element of your creativeness that's stayed the same and one major element that's changed.
The figure or the embodiment of a figure has always been a constant in all my work.
Yeah.
So it's been superhero comics, the figure painting and drawing. I was really serious about it in college. The animation, I got into animating because I wanted the figure to move. What I do right now is robot design, robots, because it's the embodiment of a human. It's always been the figure for me.
Yeah.
And the thing that's changed is just been the thing that's changed. It's just been the techniques and the medium.
Yeah.
And I try to keep up with the medium and the new medium, and just keep on. That's kind of, I would say that's one of my problems, is maybe I'm too much into keeping up with everything. So I kind of want to do too much.
Yeah.
So it's hard to focus. That's where I have this. Yeah, I see there's some artists who have like a stable of artists they work with versus like someone who wants to do it all alone. And I fall into that trap where like I want to have control. I want to do it all myself because I feel like I got to control. I know what I want, so I got to do it, all aspects of it. So throughout my career, like, I did storyboarding because I drew, and then I would do the modeling or the animation, but I wouldn't do lighting or the camera moves. But now I do everything. I love lighting. I love texturing. I'm not a programmer, but I want to start developing more for all the headsets. So I try to use off the shelf like Unreal Engine, which is a game engine that's just great to do Unreal stuff. But I'm starting to develop for the Vision Pro, and I got to learn a little bit of Xcode and Swift UI. I'm like, I'm not a programmer, but I got to learn a little bit how to get the ideas in. So it's like, how much more do I stop here to research this and learn it? But I should be doing the creating. So it's like it should go hand in hand. But I wish it was a way to make it easier, because I don't have that math background or that technical background. So it's fun to work with a person who has that skill. It's just like the whole thing about like, what do I. And that's where I think it's really important to have a really good producer. I can't stress that enough. You got to have a good producer who can like be the person removed and go and oversees everything and says, not only keep you on track, but keep you on budget. Be like, okay, you don't need to do that. You need to do that. Can you take a look at that? And I've tried to do all that together, and I've always missed out something. You got to have a good producer, someone who's got your back and who advocates for you, for sure. That's why
that was wise words there, Stephen. You anticipated the next question so well, but I have to interject. It's like when Frank got the synclavier and he hired David Ocker to read the instruction book and sit next to him and tell him what button to push. And then after a while, David said, dude, you don't need me anymore. And it's like, there's like, well, I give me a job, but I kind of like telling you which button, but I don't want to be here that bad because you don't really need me. So you're like getting ready your own job. But this is Moshe Feldenkrais. He works with healing and movement. He says it's literally possible to identify a weakness and incorporate it to become a strength, rather than we're normally taught to overcome a weakness. Tell me a weakness you turned into a strength.
Man, that's a tough question to really, I have to think about that one. Man, my weakness will probably be learning to take constructive criticism the right way.
Yeah.
And then really kind of like, okay, there was a reason why this didn't work, and being able to, but also being able to be around the right people to tell you the right way.
Yeah.
I always feel like, you need that. And that's why I always think it's important to have a good producer or right-hand person to be there to kind of give you that objective viewpoint.
Yeah.
Because I'm too subjective, I'm too into it, and I'm too close to it, and you got to kind of step back and it's weird. Filmmaking and stuff, and animation, that's very collaborative, and yes, like painting and drawing is very isolated, and and
Yeah.
do it yourself. But when you take on bigger projects, you got to be open to working with a team. And I think over the course of my career, I have worked on with smaller groups and like a animation directed here and there and had like small teams. And I always had the best time when I could trust the people on my team. And I like, oh yeah, this guy's a great technical director. This guy is a first specialist. That guy's a great compositor. I don't have to worry about the stuff. I can trust them and know that they're going to get the job done. And I think it's when you find those kind of people, and I think like in bands, you find those people that you can just rely on, and you don't have to worry about it. Yeah.
No, it's a couple Zappa things there too, or one Zappa thing I wanted to mention. But Jean Cocteau said, when you make your first piece of art and your family and your friends and your teacher say, oh, it was really good, and they give you some criticism, some constructive criticism, take that and exploit it the rest of your career, which is great, Yeah. But Zappa, Gail said this, and I've always said it too, that what Frank's talent was really, because he was so collaborative his whole career, but he was the main guy, is he knew how to pull out of people what they didn't even know was in them.
Yeah.
And that's a real talent too, because you give people the opportunity. Like when Napoleon, he really got into it in my podcast. I asked him all these same questions, and the fact that he had to really learn stuff specifically, but then Frank would say, but from here to here, we're just going to improvise on stage. So he got to be totally free and come up with creative stuff. And, the line, nothing is what I want, is a line that Napoleon threw in. And I've been quoting it as Frank saying it. Well, Frank said it. It's his song in the long run. He's the composer of the song and enabled them to. But it's funny because then after Napoleon says, nothing is what I want, Frank goes, a true Zen saying, nothing is what I want, which is something Frank, raised Catholic like you and me, studied Zen a little and knows that's a very Zen statement.
Yes.
So, fill in the blank. Anger can be a productive emotion when
you're stuck in a rut.
Yeah. What's the most significant difference between men and women, physical aside?
I think women are more empathetic.
Yeah. There's a line that goes, you create what you resist. Bob Goldthwait, the comedian Bobcat, who is a big Zappa fan, he morphed it into you are what you hate. James Joyce said, it's a curious thing how your mind is super saturated with the religion in which you say you disbelieve. And Louis Buñuel said, thank God I'm an atheist. But I'm just curious, Steve, your reaction to this line, you create what you resist. I'm not saying you, but one creates what one resists. Any thoughts on that line?
Yeah, wow, you give me a lot of good stuff to think about here after this is over. Maybe, I don't know, maybe I interpret it as, I want to put out there what I'm not happy seeing that's already out there. So maybe I interpret it that way, where it's like, I create what I hate, or I'm trying to do something to replace what I'm displeased with. Already out there. It's kind of hard for me to articulate, but I think that's the kind of essence, but maybe that's not exactly what the meaning is. It's hard, man. Yeah.
But that's what I want people to expand on it. See, that's the beauty of aphorisms, and I can name them like left and right. But the key is how can you expand on them and take, you might have an epiphany from an aphorism, but how can you really expand on it? No, that's good, because it's like, well, if you don't like something, then what are you going to do about it? When Frank sang the song Broken Hearts Are for Assholes in Vegas, I saw the concert, and he's pointing at people. You're an asshole. You're an asshole. And at one point, he pointed at himself and goes, you're an asshole. Okay. These are 5 quick Alan Watts questions off the top of your head in just a couple words. 1, who started it all?
Why was it a who?
Yeah. You answered a question with a question, Steve. That's what this series is all about, inventing new questions. Okay, number 2, are we going to make it?
I hope so.
3, where do we put it?
So I think I'm trying to find like a musical response to that, but I can't. Where do we put it? We put it where it needs to belong.
4, who's cleaning it up?
I am.
5, is it serious?
It's always serious.
Wow. Frank said, I'm very serious about being not serious, but I'll tell you, Steve, no one's answered that in 40 years, who started it all? Why does it have to be a who? That's a great answer. I've never had that. Very unique.
Nice.
So how do you find peace of mind?
Oh man, it's hard to find peace of mind. You got to be like in the zone, right? Maybe like if I'm just like doing a task or creating something and things are just peace of mind though is like that means like you're clear of everything. I don't think I ever have peace of mind, to be honest.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I can't. You don't have peace of mind. And
If
if you had peace of mind, then I think it would be why worth. Then you would just be like this like vegetation, right? Like if you had nothing to worry about.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, I thought the word you used, flow, was interesting because I asked Don Preston all these questions too, and he's still playing like in his 95, he's in his 90s. And he says, oh, well, you got to not think when you're playing music. I was like, good luck. How do you turn your brain off when you have this Rolodex of, riffs in your head and musical ideas? And, how do you let go of them and let it flow? I mean, I know what he's talking about. It's sort of like when you're saying, I can't listen to music all the time when I'm working because I want to be totally consumed in my work. And that's sort of probably you're trying to reach for that flow moment.
That's a good point. It got me thinking about something like when I catch myself doing this when I draw.
Yeah.
Because it's so second nature over the years of like I always catch myself drawing a sphere first and foremost. Whatever I do,
Yeah.
I draw a sphere and I shade it in, but I think very volumetrically. So if you look at my work, all my stuff tends to be very volumetric, and I'm thinking about the 3D shapes and how they would transform to 3D.
Yeah.
Then also I catch myself going, man, I shouldn't start with a sphere. Maybe let me start with something else. I try to move it up. And like again, another thing too is like I think like I love drawing my iPad because that's kind of almost replaced my sketch pad. But boy, do I miss the days when I was in college and I had an easel with my newsprint and I was using my whole arm to draw versus using my wrist. I need to get back to that.
Yeah.
And I think I need to get back to some other my fundamentals and start trying to change things up again. And maybe it'll kind of kickstart me to think about some stuff in a different way.
Yeah, there's a great McLuhan line that applies. Carefully make plans, then do the opposite.
Yep.
That's hard. But you really evoked Charles Baudelaire, the poet, said, if you try to make a statement that will last forever, that's, wait a minute, now I can't even read my lines. But if you try to make a statement that's really, specific, it will age very fast. If you try to only own the day you're talking, it will last forever. It sort of reminds me the opposite of David Lee Roth going, here today, gone later today. But it's basically this idea about archiving, which is a word that means to keep records preserved as evidence, So, in the long run, why do we have to save all this crap if the whole point of life is to live in the moment, to be here now, like Ram Dass said? In fact, Wyndham Lewis said, the role of the artist is to live in the present and write a detailed history of the future. So, it's a two-part question, basically. Is this need or want to archive more innate or more invented? And do you have plans for your own archive?
Oh, God, that's such a good question because the older I get, the more I think about that. So just like the overall, I think about the intent for archiving is you need to learn from the past, right? So you don't repeat the past. Yeah. You need to learn. That's how you learn as an artist is you learn from your mistakes. You make a mistake. That's why you have to encourage your kids to make mistakes so they can learn from them to move forward, right? So the same thing, I go through like, if I make a mistake, I want to learn from it and not do it the same, right? And I think, I hope that would translate in like any government, and which is why, politics, I follow politics more than I should, but it's like, why can't we learn from the past? And not repeat all the same crap. As far as my personal stuff goes, man, that's a great question, because I have a body of work from that's the physical media. Like, I have maybe 10 or 12 paintings I did in college, lots of drawings on newsprint that are going to disintegrate. I've taken slides and digital pictures back in the day, but nowadays the last 25 plus years of my career is all digital, so everything sits on a hard drive somewhere. And I often wonder,
Steve, this about, because we're doing a project on archiving right now. In the digital world, you probably know better than me, the archiving specialists in LA say you have to check your hard drive once a year and replace it every 10 years. It's like,
and I don't do that.
Good luck.
I try to get stuff on the cloud if it's a project-based thing where I need to save it for a client, because maybe 5 years from now I want to come back. I try to put up in the cloud, so at least I'll let someone else's redundancies take care of it if I'm paying for like Dropbox or whatever, Apple, whatever it is. But yeah, for your own personal work, I tend to worry about that too. It's like, like, okay, so we have one child. Like, is my daughter going to be the is she gonna, hey honey, when I'm gone, there's a bunch of work here that I've gotten, and maybe some of it made it and some of it didn't, but it's out there, and it's been out there on the internet. Maybe you want to hold on to this, and if something happens with it, I hand it off to you. How do you even think about that stuff? It's archiving is crazy, especially when you make stuff. And also, you don't really see. I have like a ton of books in my library over the years. I'm one of those older guys that did like to have a lot of books of art and stuff. Like, my wife always teases me that I'm a hoarder, but I'm a good hoarder. Like, I hoard only the important stuff. But it's like, all
that's the classic line. I'm a good hoarder.
It's like, I have all the stuff here. It's like, I would hope that this would get passed on to somebody who is like me, who wants to learn, and dude,
it's gonna go in a dumpster. It's like, I know one of the greatest Zappa archivists, and he died, and I just pray they didn't throw it in a dumpster, because I've been encouraging Joe Travers and Amit for years. You got to tell Universal to buy a storage space and tell all the Zappa fans that they can send all their stuff there, because Dylan got $1 billion and they made a museum. Frank is well worth. These people have so much amazing stuff that's going in dumpsters. Anyways, a few more and we're out of here. This has really been fun, Steve. Utah Phillips says anarchy is making rules for yourself and not other people. Who's entitled to make the rules?
Anyone who wants to be active should be making the rules, right?
Yeah.
You shouldn't be passive.
Yes.
You shouldn't like what's the saying? Like, if you don't vote, you don't get a say, or you can't complain if you didn't vote. It's like, it's like, if you want to make the rules, get involved.
Yeah, because the word freedom etymologically means giving oneself one's own laws. What does freedom mean to you now?
Man, well, first and foremost, we're so privileged to be able to even say that word freedom here, right? God, I can't imagine being somewhere like in Ukraine or in all the other war-torn areas, and having to grow up and live in that day after day. So I just, man, freedom is just, wow. I just feel incredibly lucky to be able to say that I have freedom.
Yeah.
I just happen to be born in a situation where I'm at, and a certain time of history that, I didn't get plunked down in a different region,
If you were walking down the street today and you met yourself as a 12-year-old, what would you say to your 12-year-old self?
Oh man. Don't waste your time doing all that crap that you were doing, like chasing girls in your 20s and 30s. And, I feel like, oh man, but it's one of those things where it's like, when people say, do you have regrets? Oh, I don't have regrets, but Yeah, I think you do have regrets, but you just learn from those mistakes, right?
Yeah.
You learn from them. So, I mean, you can't say I don't have regrets, because if you had regrets, then you would never have gotten to where you got. So
Yeah.
I don't know, man. What do you tell? I would just say maybe tell myself, knowing what I know now, just wow, just continue what you're doing, but just maybe try to be a little bit more, man. I don't know. I don't know what to say. Like it's gonna work out, but just try to go with the flow and try not to get too hung up on the non-superficial stuff. And it's like, but then you figure it out. I figured it out along the way, and that's how I am. So like, if would you like, it's one of those Back to the Future moments, right? What would you tell your younger self? Because would you screw yourself up?
Yeah.
Right. So it's a conundrum. It's a paradox. So you probably shouldn't say anything to them.
That's really good. Okay, tell me something good you never had and you never want.
Oh man. I mean, like, what is good? I mean, like, the superficial stuff is like, oh yeah, unlimited wealth, or health, or all that kind of stuff. But it's like, that's a hard one to answer. Say it again. What was it again?
Tell me something good you never had and you never want.
Um, a free ride.
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah, because yeah.
If you were in a vat of vomit up to your neck and someone threw a bag of shit at your face, what would you do?
Uh, uh, um, just flinch.
Flinch. Good verb. What's a question that remains unresolved for you?
Man, this is the tough one. It's like, am I ever gonna, in quotes, make it? And like that goes in the whole thing about what's success and what am I am I ever gonna make it? Am I ever gonna
Yeah.
have I already made it, or am I ever gonna make it? What does make it mean? But yeah, I guess that's what yeah.
This twofold. We got three more. This is twofold. How has making art in all its realms you've done shaped your behavior?
It's made me more of a recluse, I think.
Wow, more recluse. Now, how has
Yeah.
appreciating and loving Frank Zappa's music shaped your behavior?
It's got me out to seek out more of these tribute bands that are still around, that are still playing his music. So that gets me out and open
Like
and
where we
excited.
met,
Yes.
Stinkfoot Orchestra, one of my favorites. Yeah,
Yes. I've seen them 4 times in the last year.
beautiful. They appreciate it. I just had Joey, the bass player, on.
I'm gonna watch all those, the ones with Bruce especially,
Yeah.
and Napoleon.
Yep. Thank you. And so, this is Thornton Wilder in 1928. Art is confession. Art is the secret told. But art is not only the desire to tell one's secret, it's the desire to tell it and hide it at the same time. Steve, you laid your cards on the table for almost 90 minutes. I'm not insinuating you haven't answered this. What's it really all about for you?
Man. Yeah, it's the ego talking, right? I just want to be taken seriously. I just want to be remembered, or for someone who contributed and tried to do their best to move forward in, like, am I really pushing it enough and
Yeah.
doing the hard work, and like in the big grand scheme of things, who fucking cares what you did as an artist, right? Like, I'm not curing cancer, I'm not saving people, but it's like, it's the ego thing, right? It's like, well, I just want to make a difference, or I just want to contribute to what I was good at, what I had. I don't want to say God-given talent, because I don't think that's such a thing. I think it's like what I was born with, this curiosity to want to create and make. And I just hope that maybe I can make something that could stand the test of time, or people look back and go, oh yeah, he contributed.
Yeah. It is. Our art is a healing force, man. Art and music are healing. We need them as much as everything else you mentioned there. They're all important, I think. And so what gives you the most optimism?
Man, that's a tough one in this day and age, huh? I know. Man, that's a tough one. What gives me the most optimism is I hope that there's more good than bad out there.
Yeah. Well, you got to have a positive attitude. I think William Blake said, we become what we behold. So, accent the positive, but you got to be realistic too. So, I really appreciate your time, Steve, because the first question I asked, what's the best thing for a human being? Wilhelm Reich said the best thing for a human being is another human being. Yeah. And the last question is what they asked Groucho Marx at the end of his life, what gives you the most optimism? And he said, other people. So it's sure been fun spending this time with another person, especially because it was you, Steve. Thank you so much for your time and energy.
Gerry, thank you so much. And I'm really glad I got to meet you at that concert, and I want to talk to you more after this.
Hey, yeah, we can hang out, man. We're neighbors. Yeah. And there's a Zappa event in December 8th that I'll send you the details. It's amazing.
I'm there.
Yeah. Oh, it's so cool. Maybe we can even ride together. I'll send you the link right now.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Dominic Priori is going to cover the Frank Zappa Hotspots map.
Wow.
He's going to, you see that map, he's going to go through all the locations. Okay. And he's really a great Venice historian. It's coming up really soon.
I'm there.
Okay. Thanks, Steve. I'm going to hit the end broadcast button now, but I hope this never ends and we can keep talking forever and ever.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot, Steve.